I don't know why that moment keeps replaying in my head like a broken tape, over and over. The room, the silence, that laugh. It's 3:17 a.m., and I haven't slept a single minute. My heart still races like I'm standing there again, under those hot lights with all those fake smiles. I can feel the sting in my throat, the one you get right before you cry but you're too embarrassed to let it out. I should have said something stronger. I should have screamed, maybe, or left earlier. But I just stood there. I'm Gemma. I'm 29. Married to Randall for 3 years, and I used to think I understood what married meant. We met in the most awkward way possible, stuck in a broken elevator during a group outing to an escape room. It was cramped and smelled like hand sanitizer and cheap cologne. He cracked lame jokes. I was mostly trying not to pee myself. It wasn't cute, but somehow that weirdness turned into dates, and then years, and then a wedding. I don't have a big family, just my mom, my dad, and my sister Malene. We're not touchy-feely or close in the traditional sense, but we show up for each other. Randall, on the other hand, comes from this giant, loud, in-your-face family. The kind that thinks every gathering has to involve at least 20 people and 7 kinds of cheese dip. I tried. I really did. I learned their names. I remembered their birthdays. But they never made it easy. There's always been this undercurrent. Like I'm the outsider who didn't get the family memo. The jokes started small, about how I don't eat enough or look too serious. But lately, it's changed. Now they talk like I'm the problem, the dramatic one, the one who always ruins the mood. They don't say it to my face, not always, but it's in their tone, their smirks, the way they look at each other after I speak. Last weekend was Ariana's baby shower, Randall's cousin. She's sweet, honestly, not part of the poison. The shower was at his mom's house, and from the second we stepped in, I felt it. That strange buzz in the air, like everyone had read the same group chat I hadn't been included in. I tried to breathe through it. Smile, scroll through TikTok when no one was looking, pretend I belonged. Then Reagan, Randall's sister, found me. She's always been the queen bee, the kind who thinks sarcasm is a personality trait. She looked me up and down, sipped her sparkling water and said, "Brave shoe choice." I was wearing black Doc Martens, nothing outrageous, but that's her thing, backhanded compliments with sugar on top. I smiled and said nothing, just like always. I was standing near the window, away from the noise, when it happened. One of Randall's aunts, I still don't know her name, looked at us and said way too loudly, "So when are you two gonna start your family?" And I swear to God it felt like every sound in the room stopped. The music, the chatter, the clinking of glasses, just silence, heavy and choking. Randall knows how I feel about that question. We've talked about it 100 times. I'm not ready. I might never be. He always said he understood, that we were on the same page. So I smiled politely and said, "Oh, we're not in a rush. Light, casual." I thought it would end there, but then he laughed, loud, hard, sharp, and said the words that shattered me in front of everyone. With her, I'd rather stay childless than raise kids with that kind of negativity. He said it like a joke, but it landed like a punch. And they laughed. All of them. Not polite laughs. Real, ugly laughter. Reagan cackled and added, she'd probably give birth to complaints and breastfeed them drama. I froze. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My face was on fire, and he just kept smiling. I looked at Randall. I wanted to believe it was a mistake, a bad joke, but his eyes were proud, like he was soaking in the attention, like I was just another punchline at his comedy show. I whispered, "You're not funny." He smirked. "Relax. You're always so sensitive. No wonder I don't want kids with you." I don't even remember the rest of what they said. I just remember needing to get out. But when I turned to leave, he grabbed my arm, not gently, not with care, like I was some object about to ruin the show. "Where are you going?" he hissed. "Don't ruin this for everyone." And in that moment, something inside me cracked. I pulled away and said, "Touch me again, and I will." I wasn't loud. I didn't scream, but my voice shook with something close to rage or freedom. I walked down the hallway, my steps heavy and slow, like my legs didn't want to carry me. My throat burned, but I didn't cry, not yet. I passed Reagan near the bathroom. Of course she tried to stop me. "Oh, come on, Gemma, it was just a joke." Like that excused everything. Like being mocked in front of a room full of people was somehow my fault for not laughing along. I didn't even speak, just pushed past her. A tray of party favors tipped over as I brushed the table. She gasped like I'd slapped her. Whatever. The front door felt miles away. Every step toward it felt like dragging a boulder. And then, another aunt tried to grab my arm. Why do they all think they can touch me like I belong to them? Like I'm something to be handled? Don't. I said, firm but quiet. She backed off, lips tight, like I was the one being unreasonable. I opened the door and slammed it behind. Me. The sound echoed in my chest like a gunshot. For the first time that day, I breathed. I got into Randall's car. Yes, his. I didn't even care. I sat in the driver's seat, palms shaking against the wheel. My phone buzzed over and over. In my bag, but I didn't check it. My hands felt like they weren't mine. I texted Malene, my best friend, not my sister, and all I said was, "Can I come over?" Her reply came fast. Always. I started the car and didn't look back. Not once. Let him Uber home. At her place, she didn't ask for details. She handed me a pair of sweatpants, a hoodie, and a blanket. I sat at her kitchen table, eating leftover pizza and trying not to fall apart. She just let me talk when I was ready. I told her everything, slowly, pieces of the story leaking out like water through cracks. I don't remember what I said first. Maybe the laugh, maybe the way he looked at me like I was the joke. All I know is, I didn't feel crazy there. Then, group chat was blowing up. I didn't read the messages right away. I couldn't. But even through the locked screen, I saw names pop up. Randall, Reagan, his mom, then my mom. I texted her, just so she wouldn't worry. She said, "I'm not surprised. I'll call you tomorrow." That sentence hit me harder than I expected. She wasn't surprised. What does that say about how long I've been tolerating this? That night, I slept on Malene's couch. Not well. I kept waking up with that same hot, breathless panic, like I'd forgotten something important or left the stove on. But it was just the memory, the room, the words, the laughter. I'd dream about it, but it felt real every time. I kept hearing, with her, I'd rather stay childless, over and over like a curse. Randall's voice, that stupid grin. I curled into the blanket tighter. The next morning, I opened my phone. Over 30 notifications. One from Randall. "Can we talk?" One from Reagan. A meme. A cat with drama queen in big bold letters. I blinked at the screen. Is this who I married into? A family that treats humiliation like a game? They weren't even pretending to care, just laughing, spinning the story their way, painting me as the one who overreacted. Even Ariana, sweet Ariana, sent a private message saying, "I'm really sorry. That wasn't okay." She was the only one who didn't laugh, the only one who looked uncomfortable. I thanked her, said it wasn't her fault, but it reminded me that not everyone in that family was trash, just most of them. It also reminded me that silence isn't always neutral. Most of them just stood there, watched it happen. Randall's next text said, "You made a scene." I stared at that for a long time, like I made a scene. Not the guy who turned me into a punchline, not the people who clapped when I was insulted, me, for walking out, for having the nerve to remove myself from their circus. The gaslighting was thick and familiar. I could already hear the next line. "You're too sensitive. You always make everything a big deal." But this time, something in me had shifted. I didn't want to explain myself. I didn't want to apologize for not laughing when I was the target. I didn't want to justify my hurt to people who saw it as entertainment. I was done being their clown. I was done swallowing it all. If that made me dramatic, fine. Let them call me names. Let them gossip. Let them say I walked away. Because I did, and I'm not going back. I stayed at Malene's for 2 more nights. I didn't even pack a bag, just wore the same sweats, tied my hair up, and tried not to think too hard. Every time I looked at my phone, there were more messages from Randall. "Let's just talk. You're making this worse. You embarrassed me." That last one made me laugh. I embarrassed him? The man who publicly humiliated me in front of his entire family? Unreal. I didn't respond. I wouldn't. Then Reagan started posting in the family group chat again. A new meme, a stock photo of a woman rolling her eyes with the caption, "Here comes the drama," Comic Sans font. I almost threw my phone against the wall. Instead, I muted the thread and stared at the ceiling. It was like they wanted to see if I'd break, like I was their weekly entertainment. A live soap opera they could laugh about at dinner. I called my sister, my real sister, not Malene. She said, "Please tell me you're not thinking about going back." I said I didn't know. She said, "Gemma, you better not cave on this." She was the one person who never bought the fake smiles, the nice-to-your-face comments. She'd always said Randall's family gave her Stepford cult vibes. I used to roll my eyes. Now I wondered how I didn't see it sooner. Randall DM'd me again. "You know how my family is. Don't take it personally." As if that excused it. As if decades of toxic tradition made it okay to rip someone apart for sport. I replied, "You embarrass me on purpose." He left me on red. Classic. No apology, no reflection, just silence. The kind that says more than words. The kind I was far too familiar with. Then Reagan crossed a line. She screenshot our DMs, my private messages with Randall, and posted them in the family group chat. She added, "Wow, someone's off their meds. I wasn't even on medication. But even if I was, what the hell?" My hands shook. My chest tightened. I wanted to scream. Ariana sent me the screenshot privately. I'm so sorry. This is so wrong. I believed her. I texted Reagan directly. Just one line. Delete that now or I'll remind everyone what you said about your mom at Christmas. It wasn't a bluff. I had receipts, and she knew it. Within minutes, the message was gone. No apology, no shame, just fear of exposure. That's the only language people like her understand. I didn't reply again. I didn't need to. She got the message. Later, that day, Randall's mom left me a voicemail. I didn't listen to all of it, just the first line. Gemma, you need to stop causing drama. This isn't how we handle things in this family. Handle things? Like I'm a crisis to be managed? Like I'm a stain on their perfect white tablecloth? I rolled my eyes and deleted it. If that was handling, they could keep it. I choose peace. That night, I posted in the family group chat, just a few lines. I'm not your clown. I'm not here for your entertainment, and I'm not putting up with the jokes anymore. If any of you want to talk to me like adults, I'm here. If not, leave me alone. Then I hit send and turned my phone off. I didn't wait for reactions. I didn't care what came next. That was my line in the sand. 5 minutes later, Ariana texted me again. I'm proud of you. She was the only one who saw me as human. The rest? I think they saw me as a threat. A mirror. A reminder that not everyone plays along. Randall's aunt replied in the chat hours later with, "See, this is why outsiders don't understand our family." I didn't reply. Let them have their twisted definitions. I was done performing for them. I started packing my things mentally, making lists, planning. I didn't know where I'd go yet, but I knew I wasn't going back to that house. I wasn't going to let Randall twist this into another Gemma's too emotional story. I saw what they really were, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. I wasn't the problem. I never was, and I sure as hell wasn't going to be anyone's entertainment anymore. I don't know why I agreed to go to that dinner. Maybe I wanted closure. Maybe I wanted to finally say what I'd been holding in for years. Or maybe, deep down, I still hoped someone, anyone, would acknowledge how wrong it all was. Randall's mom sent the invite, said it was to clear the air. Classic move, make it public so I wouldn't make a scene. But they forgot. I wasn't scared of scenes anymore. I was scared of staying quiet. I asked my sister to come with me. She didn't even hesitate. Just said, hell yes, and showed up in boots and eyeliner sharp enough to kill. On the drive over, I kept going over everything I wanted to say. I had it all typed in my notes app. My hands were sweaty. My stomach was knots. My sister grabbed my phone and said, "Don't let them gaslight you into thinking you're the problem." I nodded. I needed to hear that out loud. We got to the restaurant. The hostess looked at us like she already knew who we were. Randall's whole family was there. His mom, Dad, Reagan, of course, 2 aunts, even Ariana, who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. Randall stood up when we walked in, tried to smile. I didn't hug him. I didn't even smile back. I just sat down, my sister next to me, arms crossed, not blinking. They started with small talk, weather, parking, a new movie someone saw. No one mentioned the baby shower. No one mentioned the texts. It was like we were all pretending this was normal, but I could feel it, this invisible tension, waiting to snap. Reagan kept whispering to her aunt, smirking. Randall looked nervous. His mom kept glancing at me like she was sizing me up, like I was a threat to manage. Then she cleared her throat. "So," she said, like it was a board meeting, "I think we all know why we're here. I'd like to move forward, but we can't do that if people keep holding grudges." Her eyes went from me to Randall and back. "It would be helpful if everyone could apologize for their part in this, so we can all put it behind us." I almost choked on my water. "Everyone? Really?" Randall jumped in. "We all said things, but Gemma, you overreacted. I just want things to go back to normal." Normal, that word again. Reagan snorted. "Some people don't even know what normal is." My sister looked at me like, "Your move." For a second, I almost stayed quiet, almost played nice like I always did. But then I remembered the laughter, the silence, the grip on my arm, and I couldn't swallow it anymore. I pulled out my phone, opened my notes. "Actually," I said, my voice clear and steady, "I made a list." Randall's mom blinked. Reagan rolled her eyes. I read, pasta salad comment, Doc Martens insult, drama queen meme, calling me negative, control your wife, and of course the joke about staying childless. The table fell silent, except one aunt who kept sipping her wine like she was watching a movie. Randall interrupted. "You know we're just joking, right? We don't mean it." I looked at him. "You laughed at me, not with me. You made me the punchline, and you liked it." Reagan said, "Oh my God, are we really doing this?" I turned to her. "Yeah, we are. You don't get to call it a joke just because you didn't like the consequences." Then I looked straight at Randall. "You said you didn't want kids with me because I'm too negative, but last month, you told me you weren't ready. To be tied down, that you were scared I'd turn our kids against you. Do you want a wife, Randall? Or just someone to help you look good at dinner parties?" His face turned red. He opened his mouth, but I kept going. "You humiliated me in public, so now I'm telling the truth in public." Reagan stood up. You don't get to play the victim. I stayed seated. Then stop casting me as the villain. She tried to move toward me, but my sister stood too, blocked her. Calm, solid, a wall. Randall's mom hissed, "This is enough. You're tearing this family apart." I turned to her. "No, you are. By refusing to call out cruelty when it happens. I'm not sorry for leaving. I'm not sorry for defending myself. I'm only sorry I didn't do it sooner." I reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope I'd been carrying for 3 days. I placed it on the table in front of Randall. "Those are divorce papers," I said quietly. "I just need your signature." For a moment, no one moved. No one breathed. Reagan gasped like I'd pulled a gun. Randall's mom said, "You can't be serious," but I didn't flinch. I was serious. I'd never been more serious in my life. Randall stared at the envelope like it might bite him. His hands didn't move. His mouth opened and closed twice before any words came out. "You're throwing everything away. Over some jokes?" That word again. Jokes. I felt like laughing. "No," I said. "I'm throwing it away because you don't respect me, and neither does your family." The silence in that room was the most honest thing they'd ever given me. He stood up, reached for my arm. "Gemma, wait." I stepped back. "Don't touch me." My voice was ice, calm, controlled. I wasn't his anymore. Not to be grabbed, not to be calmed down, not to be silenced. He blinked like he didn't recognize me. Maybe he didn't. Maybe the woman standing in front of him wasn't the one who used to stay quiet, smile, and swallow her pain. Maybe she was gone. Reagan slammed her hand on the table. "You're just jealous because you're not one of us." I looked at her, dead in the eyes, and laughed. "Thank God for that." My sister smiled. Randall's mom said something under her breath, but I didn't care. I had said what I came to say. There was nothing left to discuss. I stood up. My sister followed. Together we walked toward the exit like we were walking out of a fire. Randall followed us into the lobby. "Gemma, please. We can fix this. You don't have to do this." I stopped, turned. "You had every chance to fix it. Every time I told you how they treated me. Every time I asked you to stand up for me and you didn't. You chose to laugh with them instead of standing beside me. Now it's your turn to feel alone." I didn't wait for his response. I turned and walked. He shouted after me, "You'll regret this, Gemma." I didn't even flinch. I just kept walking. My sister opened the door for me like a bodyguard. We stepped into the cold air. For the first time in what felt like years, I felt my lungs actually fill, like I'd been underwater this whole time, and finally broke the surface. I didn't look back. I didn't care who was watching. I was done being anyone's wife, anyone's puppet. Back at my sister's car, I sat in silence for a moment. My hands were trembling, but not from fear, adrenaline. My sister looked over and said, "I'm so proud of you." I started to cry, not from sadness, from release, from everything I'd held in for so long. "He called me dramatic," I whispered, wiping my face. "Watch me thrive." She grinned and turned up the music. Hell yeah. That night I didn't sleep much, but for once it wasn't because of anxiety. It was because my mind was racing, not with panic, but with possibility. I kept thinking about the apartment listings I'd been bookmarking, the plants I wanted to repot, the books I'd left unread for months. My life was a mess, but it was mine again, and that meant something. It meant everything. Randall kept texting over the next few days, different numbers, different tones. "I miss you. You're making a mistake. We can fix this." I didn't reply. I didn't even read most of them. I blocked every number. I wasn't going to let him slip back in just because he was scared of being alone. That wasn't love. That was control. And I don't do that anymore. I moved back in with my parents for a bit. My mom kept making soup like I was sick. My dad didn't say much, but every time he refilled my car's gas tank without asking, it felt like love. Quiet love. My sister kept sending me memes and articles about fresh starts and divorce glow-ups. I smiled for real again, slowly, gently. I wasn't okay yet, but I was getting there, and for once I believed I would be. The first week back at my parents' felt like rehab, not in the dramatic sense, just in the quiet, slow-motion way you learn how to breathe again. I didn't unpack right away, just left my bag in the hallway like part of me still wasn't sure. I belonged here. My mom hovered, asking if I needed anything every 10 minutes. My dad fixed the squeaky door to my childhood room without a word. It was their way of saying, "We see you." Some days, I felt okay. I'd scroll through apartment listings, make coffee, listen to music that didn't remind me of him. Other days, I couldn't even get out of bed. I'd lie there staring at the ceiling fan, wondering how I let it go on for so long, how I convinced myself that biting my tongue was better than being alone. But then I'd remember the baby shower, the silence, the laughter, and suddenly alone didn't sound so bad. I started keeping a notebook, just a cheap spiral one from the drugstore. Every night, I'd write one thing I didn't miss about Randall, the way he talked over me at dinner, how he called me too intense whenever I cried, that fake laugh he did when people made fun of me. Page after page, It helped, not just with the hurt, but with the fog. It made things clearer, made me remember who I was before him. Malene, my best friend, invited me to crash at her place for a weekend, just to get a break from my parents' house. We stayed up late watching bad reality TV and drinking wine from mugs. She never asked if I was okay. She just handed me a blanket and said, "You don't owe anyone forgiveness." That sentence stuck with me for days. I think I'd been waiting for someone to say that my pain didn't need permission. I applied for a new job. Nothing huge, just a marketing assistant role at a small studio downtown. Something to focus on, something that had nothing to do with Randall. When I got the interview, I told no one but Malene. I didn't want encouragement. I just wanted a win that belonged to me. When I got the offer, I cried in the bathroom alone, not because I was scared, because for once, I was proud of myself. One afternoon, I went to the old apartment to get the last of my stuff. Randall wasn't there. The place smelled different, emptier, like he'd been trying to erase me. My favorite mug was gone. The plant I'd named after a Grey's Anatomy character was dead, but the silence didn't hurt. It felt deserved. I walked through each room one last time, touched the doorknob, and left the key on the counter. On the way out, I ran into our old neighbor. She looked surprised. "Oh, are you moving?" I nodded. She smiled gently and said, "You always seemed too quiet for that guy." I didn't know what to say, but her words wrapped around something inside me, like even strangers had noticed, like I hadn't been crazy all along. I got in the car and cried for 10 solid minutes, not because I was sad, but because I wasn't anymore. The divorce papers were still unsigned. Randall had gone radio silent after our last run-in. I didn't chase him. I didn't follow up. I wasn't playing that game. If he wanted to stall, fine. Let the silence speak for him. I moved forward anyway. I toured apartments, opened a savings account in my own name, bought new sheets. Simple things, quiet rebellions, proof that I could build a life without needing permission. I saw a therapist, just once for now. She asked me why I stayed. I told her I didn't want to be the girl who gave up on marriage. She asked me if that girl ever deserved to be laughed at in front of a room full of people. I didn't answer. I just sat there, tears on my cheeks, nodding slowly. That session didn't fix everything, but it opened a door, one I knew I'd eventually walk through. I started smiling more, not performative smiles, real ones, small, quiet, blooming ones. I took long walks alone, listened to podcasts, started sketching again. I watered the plants I'd saved and repotted a new one, named it Peace. My sister made fun of me for that, but then bought me a ceramic pot that said, "Watch me thrive." I keep it on my nightstand. Some nights I still cry, but most nights I sleep, and that feels like a miracle. About 3 weeks after the baby shower, I got a message from Ariana. Just a casual, "Hey, how are you?" That didn't feel casual at all. I replied politely, and she followed up with, "Reagan's been telling people you attacked her at the dinner." I stared at my screen, genuinely speechless. "She wishes," I texted back. Ariana laughed and said, "I told her to grow up." I thanked her. She's still the only one in that family who ever acted like a human being. The next morning, I was picking up groceries for my mom when I saw a number I didn't recognize calling me. I didn't answer, then a text. "Please talk to me." I was just joking. Randall, still, after all this time, after everything, still stuck on that word, joking. I stared at the message for a long time, then texted back, "So was I. I was just pretending to be your wife. I blocked the number before he could reply. I thought that would be the end of it." But a few days later, I was walking out of my building when I saw him standing by the parking lot. Randall, hair messier than usual, wearing the same stupid jacket he always wore when he was trying to seem relaxed. My heart dropped. He didn't say anything at first, just looked at me, like he expected me to run to him. I didn't. I stood still, waiting, calm, cold. He finally said, "Can we talk?" I shook my head. "No." He stepped forward. "You can't avoid me forever." I said, "Watch me." He looked like he was about to say something smug, but then saw my face and backed off. "You're different," he said. I nodded. "Yeah, I am." And I meant it. I wasn't scared of him anymore. I wasn't scared of how he'd spin it. He didn't have power over me. Later that week, Randall's mom texted my mom again. Said she was disappointed in how I'd handled things. That family is sacred. My mom, God bless her, replied, "Gemma's an adult. She'll decide what's sacred to her." She showed me the message like she was proud, and I was proud of her too. For the first time, she didn't try to make peace. She just backed me. No lectures, no pressure, just support. One night, Ariana messaged again. "They're planning another family dinner to reset things. You're invited." I didn't even think about it. I typed, "No thank you," and hit send. I didn't need a seat at their table to feel valid. I had my own table now, my own people, my sister, Malene, my mom, a few real friends. That was enough. I wasn't chasing closure anymore. I was the closure. But then something unexpected happened. I ran into Reagan at a coffee shop. She spotted me before I could leave. She strutted over like nothing had happened. "Gemma," she said, smiling tight. "Didn't think I'd see you here." I said, "It's a coffee shop, not your living room." She tried to laugh it off. "Still dramatic, huh?" I just looked at her. "Still desperate for attention, huh?" Her face dropped. She muttered, "You really think you won, don't you?" I leaned in slightly. "This isn't about winning. It's about walking away from people who treated me like I was disposable. And guess what? I'm not." She rolled her eyes and walked off, but I saw it, the flicker, the tiny shift in her expression. Like for the first time, she realized I wasn't playing anymore. I wasn't scared of being the villain in their story. That night, I journaled about it. Not to vent, but to remember, to remind myself that I wasn't weak for leaving. I was strong for finally choosing me. I wasn't waiting for apologies that would never come. I wasn't going to let people who never respected me define my worth. I was rebuilding myself, one quiet moment at a time, one boundary, one breath, one day without pain. And as I looked at my reflection brushing my teeth before bed, I whispered to myself, I was never the problem. It felt like a release, like the final thread snapping off the version of me that tried so hard to belong. I didn't belong to them. I didn't belong to Randall. I belonged to me, and that was more than enough. It's been 2 months since that baby shower, 2 months since my world cracked open in front of everyone, and I chose to walk away instead of breaking down. I don't regret it, not for 1 second. Every day since then has been a step toward peace, not perfection, not instant healing, just quiet. I don't jump when my phone buzzes anymore. I don't wait for someone to tell me how to feel. I just live, and that's everything. The divorce is official now. Randall finally signed. Sent the papers back with a note that said, I still don't get what you wanted from me. That told me everything. He never saw me. Not really. Just the version of me that fit into his life, his family, his expectations. And when I stopped performing, he couldn't handle it. So I let him go, not out of hate, but because I loved myself more. My new apartment is small, but it's mine. The floors creak, the faucet leaks a little, but every corner feels safe. I've filled the space with light and plants and things that bring me peace. I hung up my Watch Me Thrive pot in the kitchen window. Every time I water it, I think about all the times I stayed quiet to keep the peace. And I remember now, real peace doesn't come from silence. It comes from truth. I see people differently now, the way they speak, how they treat waiters, how they handle being wrong. I pay attention. I've learned that cruelty wrapped in laughter is still cruelty, that just because something is tradition doesn't mean it's worth honoring, that family isn't a hall pass for emotional abuse, and that sometimes walking away isn't weakness. It's the strongest thing you'll ever do. I ran into Ariana again at the grocery store. She hugged me, said, "You look different." I said, "I feel different." She nodded. "They're still talking about you, you know." I smiled. "Let them." She laughed. "You really don't care anymore, huh?" I paused. "Not about what they think. I care about how I feel. And that's a first." We hugged again. It felt real, like closure, but without begging for it. Sometimes I still think about that moment, when the room went quiet and Randall made that joke. It's like a scar. It doesn't hurt the way it used to, but it reminds me of what I survived, of how far I've come. And every time I replay it, I feel stronger, because I didn't stay. I didn't make excuses. I walked away, and I never went back. That's the difference between breaking and choosing peace. There are days I still feel the sting. Something small will trigger it. A joke on TV, a hand brushing my arm too hard, a text from an unknown number. But now I breathe through it. I remind myself, you're safe now. You got out, and it passes. The pain doesn't own me anymore. The past doesn't get to define me. I define me, and I'm done carrying shame that never belonged to me in the first place. People ask if I'll date again. I say maybe, but right now, I'm dating my own life. I'm learning what I like, what I don't, what I never want to tolerate again. I'm setting boundaries and not apologizing for them. I'm laughing with people who make me feel seen. I'm resting, rebuilding, not for anyone else, just for me, and that feels like the biggest victory of all. I walk by mirrors now and don't flinch. I see a woman who made it out, who stopped waiting for someone to stand up for her and stood up for herself, who was called dramatic, sensitive, too much, and still rose. I see strength in my own reflection, soft strength, quiet power, and I whisper to her sometimes, they underestimated you, but look at you now. Because at my baby shower, someone asked when we'd start a family, and now I know. I already have. It's not the kind of family they meant. It's better. It's honest, and it starts with me.